something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with a crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories. Good night. Welcome to Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Tonight we're going to open up the case of Sandra Bland. What happened to Sandra Bland? It is such a disturbing case in the media right now. We have allegations of tampered with videos. We have allegations of police brutality. Excuse me. And we have the police defending themselves as always. And a lady who we know was starting a new job that ended up committing suicide. As alleged by the police. What do you think about that tonight?
Well,
Excuse me.
the tragic part of what I've seen reported in the news is that the editing of the video, and also that this young lady, listening to her post and her mentality at the time leading up to what happened, didn't appear to seem like a person that would panic or be so distraught that she was in jail for 48 or 72 hours that she would take her own life.
Danny, let me jump in right now, and let me apologize to my viewers for my voice tonight. I'm having some problems with my throat. But let me tell you what's disturbing to me. I had another lady lawyer call me last night and said, you know, she was just too sarcastic with the police officer. You know, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. We, as black people, are taught, and we teach our children not to be sarcastic with the police. But we know that people are sometimes, and we know our Anglo friends are sarcastic with the police a lot because we've been in the car when they've gotten tickets. So although she should not have been sarcastic, what I heard wasn't that bad. I mean, she has a right to smoke a cigarette. It's legal, she's grown, it's her car. She has a right to ask the officer, why are you making me get out of the car? I mean, if she failed to signal lane change, then the officer should either give her a traffic citation or a ticket. I mean, that's it. I mean, that is as far as they're supposed to go. And even though she was sarcastic, officers are trained that people will not always cooperate. And everyone knows that's one of the hardest jobs is to be a traffic cop. That's why when cops start off on patrol, they want to hurry up and get another job and do a good job so they can go on to being a detective or doing one of the many other assignments that officers do, because people are always being rude and mean and ugly to them. I mean, that's just a part of the game. It's unfortunate that there's a double standard, like the tolerance that officers learn are for their white citizens that they stop, but it's not for the black citizens. Although I thought she was being a little sarcastic, to me the officer should have just sucked it up and just given her a ticket.
Right.
Because that's just par for the course. As a criminal defense lawyer, people talk ugly to me every day. But I know that I either need to change jobs or I got to take it. If I'm representing someone accused of sexual assault or murder or just possession of marijuana, every day I go to court, the prosecutors are saying, oh, your client is a rapist, your client is a dope smoker. I mean, they talk about my clients like they are just awful people. A lot of times they're young kids who smoke weed just like their white friends who are not in the courthouse, because it's just the black kids in the courthouse, it's just the Hispanic kids, but these kids are from the same kind of families, they go to the same schools, and they know that they're being singled out because their Anglo friends are not being singled out. And so to hear prosecutors talk smack to me every day about my no-good clients is hurtful, but I can't talk noise back to those prosecutors because they'll take that out on my client. And that's the problem with law enforcement. People in power get to take it out on people who are not in power. So when I represent any defense attorney, no matter who it is, if it's the best in the world, they're going to have to hear noise from the prosecutors because the prosecutors know they have the power. And so I get noise talk to me every day by kids who are young enough to be my children. And I can't fuss. I can't tase them. I can't tell them to get out of the courtroom. All I can say is to a 25-year-old lawyer who's telling me my client ain't worth a quarter, all I can say is, yes, ma'am, I understand your position, but this is our position. And that's all I can say. No matter if they call them trash, if they say they're low life, that's all I can do. So let me let you know that there are a lot of people who take noise every day. Every day a judge is saying something ugly about my client. Every day a prosecutor is saying it. Every day, and I've been doing this for 23 years.
Well, Vivian, can I give you a real life encounter that I just recently had on June 28, 2015 with law enforcement?
Sure.
I rented a car here in Houston, and it was a red Toyota, I can't pronounce the store with an A, Elantra. Nice car, had only 600 miles on it. I'm feeling good. I'm finna go to my hometown, Texarkana, Texas. I get on 59. And I'm on 59, not even 15 minutes. I'm in a convoy of cars in the fast lane. I'm the last one in the convoy. The only thing about this day on, I have on like a white beater t-shirt and a baseball cap. That's the only thing I could see was probably problematic. So we all in a convoy and we going. It's a state trooper on the side of the road. Every one of the cars passed by him. When I passed by him, I don't know why I had this ominous feeling like he watching me. Then I blew it off. I see him get it in on the traffic in my rearview mirror. He doesn't put his lights on. He's in the traffic. I'm watching him. And of course, I don't get real nervous, but I'm aware he's there. I'm looking at my speedometer. I'm like, I hadn't did anything, so I shouldn't have fear. So I switched lanes. I put my signal light on. And I noticed that he speeds up. He's behind me now. He don't put his lights on. He gets right beside me.
Wow.
So he gets right beside me. I said, well, I'm not speeding, so he didn't put his lights on. So he lets me goes up in front of him. He puts the lights on. He lights me up like the police officer says. And he pulls me over.
Now, wait a minute, Danny. Before we go any further, we know my frequent co-host, Danny Sneed, is on parole. We know he's done 15 years in prison. He's about to get out parole. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. He works with the Path to Freedom at our church, working with people who are just getting out of jail. He's against mass incarceration. So obviously, Danny's going to be a little nervous at a traffic stop because he's still on paper, as they say.
That's right.
So talk to us, Danny.
So I'm saying, do they got like a radar in their car to send?
No.
That's Danny.
On paper, on paper.
No, I'm thinking like they know me.
Right.
Like they was waiting for me, like they watched me.
Right.
So, they pulled me over, and he pulled me over. I said, I'm on the phone with somebody. I said, let me get off the phone. I'm being pulled over, which I shouldn't have did.
You should have stayed on the phone so they could hear everything.
So I calm down, and I think about everything I've saw on the news, and I'm saying, I'm not that guy. So I keep my hands on the steering wheel like this here, and I got this big smile on my face when he comes to the door. How you doing, officer? And he said, hi, how you doing? He said, do you know why I pulled you over? No. He said, this car is showing that it doesn't have insurance. I said, well, maybe it's a rental car, sir. He said,
and he's lying, too. You can't tell if a car has insurance.
But
you can't tell if a car has insurance. That's not on any database that's on the National Crime Information System that police officers have access to. That's not true.
But this is a key point right here.
I wish you were tape recording him.
But I didn't question what he said. Because I'm saying to myself, it don't make sense.
Right.
How does this
How
car
would you know? Yeah.
What kind of radar that says that my car don't have insurance?
Now, remember, police officers are trained to get answers. And so that made you talk.
Fishing.
He made you talk.
My reaction.
Yeah, that made you talk.
I said, well, officer, I don't.
And see, rental car is a buzz because they think when people have rental cars, they're transporting dope. And so now you're giving him a reason now to heighten his suspicion.
Right. I said, so he says, do you have your driver's license? I'm just gonna go. If it's a rental car, they have insurance on it. So I give him a driver's license. My phone rings. So my good friend Kevin Blunt is calling me. I said, man, stay on the phone with me. I'm pulled over. And I said, I'm not nervous, but just stay on the phone with me because I'm in the Bluetooth. And the whole process took about 27 minutes. How do I know?
27 minutes?
Because he came back and because he ran my name. So when he ran my name, I said, oh, Lord. So when he come back, I know he knows more about me than I know about him. but I'm not going to be evasive. He said, well, Mr. Sneed, have you ever been arrested for anything? I said, officer, how much time do you have? And then he said, I said, well, not only have I been arrested, sir, I'm currently on parole, but I'm due to get off in August 3rd, 2015.
And when you said that, he's now trying to look for some reason to
Right.
arrest you so he can get you.
And I'm so excited to tell them this, and I'm so excited I'm not doing anything wrong.
Right, right.
Man, so I'm like happy, really.
I'm a good citizen now. I'm a good citizen.
Yeah. So after he asked me have I been arrested for, I said I'm gonna go with some things that I know of, and I told him I'm not gonna
Danny,
say.
why are you telling him all of this? I just don't like this.
Listen, think about it. He already knows.
Danny.
He already knows.
He's about to pull you out of the car, Danny.
He's gonna do it anyway, Vivian. This is not my first time going through this.
Okay.
Remember, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Okay.
So he says, so I give him a few little crumbs. I did this, I did this, and I did this. He said, okay. So he goes back to the car and comes back. He said, have you ever been arrested, having any drug convictions? I said, sure. He said, you didn't tell me that. I said, sir, I told you I got an extensive criminal background history. It starts back in 1989. This is 2015.
And I told you I'm still on parole.
He said, do you mind if I search the car? Absolutely not.
Oh, Danny.
Really? Really, Vivian?
Really, Danny. I've taught you better than that, Danny. I'm
really?
disappointed in you.
What are we talking about? I'm not Sandra.
I'm still disappointed in you.
But I'm not Sandra. Sandra she didn't have a criminal background history. I'm for social justice. I'm against mass incarceration, especially if it includes me in it. I'm not trying to be a part of that system anymore.
Danny.
I'm humble. I'm changed.
All right.
I'm complying with the officer.
Okay. He's overreaching though, but go ahead.
See, I know the procedure. If I deny it, he's gonna bring the dogs.
I know.
That's longer on me. I'm trying to get home to an event in Texarkana.
Right.
I don't want to be delayed any longer. I'm gonna cooperate. So he puts me in the back of the car, but he doesn't handcuff me. And I said, can I take my cell phone? He said, sure. So I still got my friend Kevin Blunt on the phone, and I'm in the back of the car. I can see him searching the car, and I noticed the dash
cam.
Dash cam, thank you, Vivian. And so I'm looking at it, and the reason I know how long I was there is filming him.
So the time is on there.
Right. And I didn't try to use the video. I'm not going all through that. So he's searching through everything in the car.
That is such an invasion of privacy.
You know what? It really was. But the thing about it is, I've done enough work with you and educated myself and prepared myself for that moment. So I knew, had already kind of played out what would happen, how I would react. So it's showtime now. So I'm not in handcuffs. Remember, I'm not in handcuffs. And what I was waiting on for more officers to show up.
Right.
No other officers show up. Another key, Vivian, no arrest warrants came back for me.
Right.
So, and I know the car is clean.
Right.
So he searches and he searches, and he comes back and gets me out of the car, and he said, "You like to play dominoes, huh?" Because there was some dominoes in the car and a chessboard. That's sidebar. But he was letting me know that it was believable, and he had this smile on his face. And you know what he did, Vivian? Before he let me go, he shook my hand. Now, he didn't have to shake my hand.
Did he still give you a ticket?
I didn't get a ticket. I never did anything wrong.
But why did he say he pulled you over?
Because he said the car showed no insurance.
The cars don't show no insurance.
And they still don't. But I didn't make that argument.
Oh, my God.
Why would I have to defend that when I know it's not true?
All right, well, let me switch to another topic. All right, Danny, I love you. we've been working together for several years now. I'm proud of you. You handled that correctly. But the problem is we have a Fourth Amendment in our Constitution, viewers, to unreasonable searches and seizure. And that was unreasonable. He didn't have even probable cause to pull him over. First of all, you have to violate the law. And Danny knew he hadn't violated the law. He wasn't speeding. He didn't have to worry about signaling for a lane change. He's on his way on a 6-hour drive. Isn't it 6 hours to Texarkana? 6 hours to Texarkana, especially if you're driving the speed limit. And so now he's out of his caravan. He's trying to go home to an event. and he's on parole. Now, let me just tell you something that's interesting. Anybody that's watching that wants an education about this, the United States Supreme Court just made a ruling on traffic stops that was actually to the defense's favor, something we hadn't had in many years. We've had 2 cases lately, but we hadn't had cases in our favor about unreasonable searches and seizures and traffic stops in 25 years. But we had one this year, and I want y'all to look it up because I know I have those avid viewers that want their education. All you have to do is Google United States Supreme Court case, Rodriguez illegal traffic stop. It came up this year. All you have to do is put in the word Rodriguez. And basically, he was stopped for a traffic violation, and he was convicted of possession of methamphetamines because he had them in the car, but the officer detained him stopped him only for traffic. He had all of his proper paperwork, that's driver's license and insurance, and they kept him there for over 8 minutes, and they said that was unreasonable. They called the dogs that smelled. They searched. They made him get out of the car, and they searched and found methamphetamines. But the court that we have now, the Supreme Court we have now, with the 2 ladies that Obama put in there, voted in our favor and said that that was unreasonable search and seizure. Knowing that the methamphetamines were there, knowing he was in prison, it went up the command, through state court all the way to the Supreme Court, that was an unreasonable search and seizure. The law is a police officer on a traffic stop can only stop you for the purpose of the stop. Okay? So if it's so let's take the case of Sandra Bland. What happened to Sandra Bland? The officer stopped her for illegal lane change. That's all he's supposed to deal with her for.
Right.
So he's supposed to write her a ticket for illegal lane change. The only information he needs to get out of her, he doesn't need to get any conversation from her. Only thing he needs to ask her, which is most police departments' police procedure, is there an emergency that you're trying to get to, and that's particularly for speeding. But for lane change, all he needs is her driver's license to write all the information he needs to write down to give her a citation. There needs to be no conversation.
Right.
So when you start saying, put your cigarette out, that's a request you can make. But when you're in a uniform, that's like color of law. There's nothing in the police policy that says you can tell someone to put their cigarette out. So to tell her to get out of the car, there's nothing in police policy to tell you to get out of the car. You're not being arrested. You don't have any traffic warrants. Why would you humiliate her like that?
Can I interject? As a former employee of the Texas Department of Public Safety and Informants Branch here in the state of Texas, I know for sure and a fact one of the policies of the Department of Public Safety is courtesy is very high. And one of the things that has gotten the officer reprimanded and put on paid administrative leave is one of the policies he broke was he wasn't courteous. And
you're talking about in the Sandra Bland case.
Right.
Right. I mean, that officer wasn't courteous. That officer wasn't courteous. Well, he wasn't kind to her at all. In fact, even though she was being a little belligerent, she wasn't being unreasonable. She has a new job. She's trying to get to it, and he's talking to her and telling her to do stuff.
He's not trying to diffuse the situation.
Well, he's not just trying to give her a ticket and let her go on about her way. This is not a social call.
He's provoking her, pushing her.
This is a forced conversation that a citizen has a right not to participate in, and to participate in it with a negative intonation. It is understood that people are going to be nervous on a traffic stop.
I don't have to like you giving me a ticket.
I don't have to like you giving me a ticket. That's not the law. And you can't take somebody out and tase them because they have a bad attitude. What we've gotten away from in society is that we don't put people in prison or in jail because we don't like them. We put people in jail because we're afraid of them. And that's what we have to keep saying, that mantra. We put people in prison we're afraid of, not people we don't like. Keep reminding yourself of that mantra. And as Black Americans, we have to know that we have the same rights as our white American friends. We pay taxes just like our white friends. I'm not saying my white friends need to go to jail, but I'm just saying officers need to stop the racism. I mean, they just have to stop that slave mentality, that Jim Crow mentality, that Black woman, you're not going to talk to me like this. Because that's basically what it is. Write her a ticket and go on about your business. Right. I mean, that's all he was supposed to do. What he did to her under the United States Supreme Court new case Rodriguez was illegal. It was an illegal detention.
Well, let me ask you this. I pose this question. After all of us who watched what happened, what do you pose is going to happen in the behavior of the response? Most Americans, African Americans, when they're pulled over, are they going to show more restraint, or they're going to be more irritated based on the fact that she shouldn't have gotten the treatment she had based on merely smoking a cigarette and saying that I hadn't did anything wrong.
I think that we should all be more polite and more cautious when we engage with officers. But I think that nothing has changed in the world. I think officers every day who give, say if they give 20 tickets a day, I'm sure half of those people are going to be belligerent. I just know that I bet if we saw his dash cam of all the people he pulled over just that week, half of them were belligerent. So I'm just telling you, but I bet the difference is they weren't belligerent and black.
Can I tell you something else to follow up on that on the story of me getting pulled?
Yeah, you
Go
can,
ahead.
but let me say something
Yes.
first. When I was a prosecutor back in 1992, Harris County prosecutors have to go through a rotation of the Justice of the Peace. I was out in Precinct 4, which back in 92 was the Champions area that was mostly white housewives in suburbia in these big houses. The constables who gave tickets there had to wear little tape recordings in their shoulder pad, because every ticket they gave to those housewives, they would go to the police chief, the constable police chief, and complain about it and say, your officer was rude, he was nasty. So back in 1992, and they was all white females that they were giving tickets to. They would have to tape record them to prove their tickets, or else they would get fired, because these women didn't believe that the law should be enforced against them. So that precinct back in 92 had to tape record every conversation and turn in a tape every day, because they knew that people were gonna come and complain. So they'd have to play the encounter. They'd have to play the encounter back to the woman and say, is this what you're complaining about? And then the women would back down, because their belligerence was caught on tape. That's before dash cams. And so what I'm telling you is I have personal experience when I was a prosecutor that there are wealthy areas in Houston where every person they stop is belligerent. And maybe that's why officers are more comfortable stopping black people than white people, because they can be very belligerent. I've heard the tapes. And so I'm not saying this just because I'm speculating this. I'm saying it because I've heard the tapes.
Okay.
And every tape I heard out in Champions back in 1992 was a lot more ridiculous than the one I heard from Sandra Bland. And so officers are used to that every day. So they're making a distinction as to who they take it for. Trust me, those housewives are not getting arrested for talking noise to the police officers.
And tasered.
Right, and they weren't getting tasered for talking noise to the police officers. Well, they didn't have tasers in 92, but they're not being tasered now, okay? You don't see white females getting tased very often. I'm not saying they don't get tased, but you don't see it very often. And they're not doing anything. This is not like a woman who's on America's Most Wanted, who's just robbed a bank, who's just broken into a house, and you're trying to take them in to arrest them for a crime, for a reason that we're afraid of them. She didn't just shoot somebody. This is a routine traffic stop for a violation of a discretionary, arbitrary violation of lane change. Now, if he'd have talked to her kindly, like his policy requires, he would have found out that she had just recently moved here from Chicago. She doesn't know the rules in Texas. She doesn't know, she probably doesn't half know where she was
I'm
going.
tired. It's a long trip.
It's a long trip. I'm tired. And you messing with me.
Right.
And see, in a lot of places, police officers don't mess with people like they do in Texas, or like they do in Houston, in the Houston area. So, I mean, I just see all kind of wrongs with that, because the officer, like you said, could have diffused the situation by just saying, okay, ma'am, you had illegal lane change, you got a nasty attitude, okay. And what officers used to do is if people had a nasty attitude, they just wrote it on the back of their copy of the ticket. So if
the judge could see it.
Well, no. So if they had if the person contested the ticket and there was a trial, they could remember them because of their nasty attitude.
Oh,
You know, it was just to remember them, because remember, these people are giving tickets all day long. So she's not the only person that was pulled over, and they're giving tickets to people with nasty attitudes. It's people saying "F you," "I hate you." I used to see that as a prosecutor. They'd write it on their little back of their tickets, but they wouldn't look like us. So officers are used to being cussed out. Right. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Right. Every day. Okay.
What's disturbing to me is I have a daughter, Sharonda Sneed, and she's about almost 30. And she believes that when she's confronted by authority, she's very defensive. But she's studying for a criminal justice degree. She's in college. And I can't get her to understand about when you feel something, you don't always have to put your thoughts into words. So I can think something, but I don't always have to say what I think. And in that situation, She could have felt all those things, but never articulated them to the officer and just said, okay, you think you're smarter than me? When this is over with, I'm going to hire an attorney. I'm going to write you up. I'm going to go to your supervisors, and I'm going to pursue this.
Right. But she didn't seem to understand that.
Well, hopefully after this show, some of the things that we discussed, that someone will see it, and if they get pulled over, that they will do something different than what Sandra did. And I'm not saying she did anything wrong. I'm just saying that she could have did something different.
Right. Well, Sandra could have done something different, but really, a person that's that, I want to exercise my rights, like, why are you pulling me over? Yes, I have a right to smoke a cigarette in my own car, is not the personality type that would feel so withdrawn that they would be suicidal. First, the law of averages on how you even kill yourself is, a lot of people don't know how to kill themselves, particularly with the things that were there. Am I really getting a phone call? If I am, caller, you're on. You can talk. Nope, not a real phone call? Okay, that was a fake phone call. Okay, so, I mean, most people just don't know that.
Right.
I mean, most people that are suicidal, I've known, are withdrawn. They don't want to talk. They're not making very good eye contact. They don't have the cocky attitude that she had when you're ready to kill yourself. Usually it's a different personality. So I would never, ever think that she would kill herself. And how do you kill yourself? I mean, in a cell, you've lived in cells a long time.
They don't put bags in there.
Yeah, they don't put bags in cells.
No, they
and
don't.
Even if they do, who would think on the law of averages that I could kill myself with a bag? I mean, no, putting it over my head maybe, but tying it around my neck with your weight, it might break. You know, I just wouldn't even think about doing that. And I would think someone in a cell would have to contemplate for a very long time how to do it, and they would be withdrawn and quiet. Is that a real phone call now? If it is, caller, you're on.
Yes, hello, Ms. King, can you hear me?
I don't hear you. It sounds like you're in a booth. So, Mark, are we having some technical difficulties? Try it again.
Hello.
Hello.
Ms. King?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I'm truly enjoying your show as I'm watching it.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you.
It sounds like you guys are kind of discussing the details of the Sandra Bland case, and I was wondering if you could maybe speak to the larger scale of African Americans knowing that their life could be in jeopardy anytime they have any engagement with law enforcement. Because prior to Ms. Bland's death, she did live in the same world that we did, and she can see police brutality going on in her own state, in Baltimore, in Cleveland, in Texas. So I can just imagine the amount of anxiety that she had upon the initial encounter with the officer.
Me too. It sounded like when I heard it that she had a lot of anxiety because she kept talking about her rights and I have a right to do this in my own car. So she seems like she already had a lot of anxiety and she felt that the officer was about to take advantage of her and she was trying to nip it in the bud. Unfortunately, she probably did it the wrong way, but that can happen. But officers, believe it or not, are trained to deal with belligerent people on the road. So I think that as citizens all over, we do have to stay calm. We should always turn our cell phones on to record. You know, like you're going to record a video, so even though you're not videotaping it because it's by you, it'll still record the voices. Or you should call someone and let them listen to you. But I think that we should have some type of backup, kind of like Danny said when he had his friend on the phone. In case he disappeared and something happened, he had somebody on the phone with him. So I think that we should be kind and polite to officers, but we should not consent to them searching our cars, and we should write that down. I just don't believe that they should intrude in our lives like that. So although Danny's on parole and he's scared.
Hey, stop saying that.
You're on parole, but you won't be, and I won't be able to say it long.
Yeah.
Since Danny's still on parole, I can see him being nervous because he's so proud of himself for not doing wrong. Right, Danny?
Right. And you know what?
You have another comment, caller? You still there? Okay.
Let me get in just before we introduce our guest. The irony of that whole situation going to Texarkana, getting pulled over, is that when I came back, I got pulled over coming back from Texarkana.
Oh, my God.
And it was a different officer in a different county. And he asked me, do I know how fast I was going? I said, no, could you tell me? You know what I'm saying? He said, well, you wasn't exceeding the speed, but when you come through here, you were decreasing. You need to decrease farther back.
Oh, my God. they just didn't like you in that red car.
Well, it was a
and you
different. Well,
you still had the same car.
So what I did is I accepted the fact that he said, I'll be right back. I didn't get searched this time. And he said, where you coming from? And I told him I was coming from an event, showed him, the little flyer I had with me. I didn't give him my bio this time because I'm not addicted to my story. But he just said, have a nice day, Mr. Sneed. But I believe it was how I responded that got the results, and not just the fact that I wasn't doing anything wrong. They're reading me.
Right.
And the more defensive you are, the more flags are drawn. Right. And then that's when they say, oh, this makes me call for backup, and we're going to find different ways to get to search your car. I'm done. I digress.
So he's digressing. So now we had just a little interesting thing happen tonight. So our guest got lost. So we talked about current events, but we're delighted that Mr. Donald Ray Davis can now join us. And Donald Ray, we're gonna, without any further ado, we'll introduce you. Thank you for joining us, Donald, and thank you for being willing to tell your story.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. My story is a tough story, and I feel like a lot of people need to hear it that's traveling down a path that they feel like there's no hope, and there is hope. My journey took off when I come out of high school. I had a mother, 4 sisters, 2 brothers, and mother worked for Herman 27 years. Father came to Houston from Louisiana, raised 7 children, construction, and started a business, a mobile home business. And I was pretty much taught the right way to go. And I decided that some things in my home that I kind of disagreed with, and I decided that I wanted to go out and do it on my own. I wanted to get me a job, do all these things at an early age. And now I understand why the mother wants the child to get the education and stay home until, they can get their life going. But I took off early because I disagreed with a lot of things the mother and them was doing, and they was all the right things. They raised me up in church. They just did all the right things. And when I started working, I felt like I can do what I wanted to do, and I started hanging out with some good people and some bad people. And the bad people influenced me into taking a negative route in my life. Even though I did some things to launch a good life, went to barber school, I just, pretty much, invested my time in education. And these influential people that was out on the street that, that so to speak, kind of pushed me up and say that, hey man, you can be anything you want to be. But they were still introducing me to marijuana. They was introducing me to all types of criminal activities.
Well, let me stop you. So, because we started a little late, I want to stop you. So, thank you for coming.
Okay.
And
thank you for having me.
Danny told me that you were coming, so he told me to look up your record. So, do you mind if I share some of that?
Oh yeah, why not?
So we can get the details. It looks like you've been convicted a lot of times of a lot of felonies for the last 30 years.
A lot.
So it started in 78. So in 1978, that case was maybe dismissed, but it looks like something happened in 1977 or 78, and they reduced that. It was either theft of a vehicle, unauthorized use of a vehicle. It was a felony, but they gave you 30 days in the county jail. Then it looks like in 1978, you got a third-degree felony of burglary of a vehicle, and you got probation, deferred adjudication, but it was revoked, and you got 30 years TDC. Is that correct? I mean, three years TDC.
Right.
And then in 1978, you got 4 years TDC for stealing a vehicle. And then in 1979, you got 4 years for stealing a vehicle. Then in 1986, when marijuana was, a felony, they reduced it to a misdemeanor amount and gave you a year in the county for a lesser included offense, even though it was marijuana. And then we started jumping into double digits in 1988. They give you 15 years for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Looked like you liked those cars, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I was
fascinated
with the lifestyle.
He loved those doggone cars. Them cars are just downfall. So you got 15 years in 1988, And then in 1990, in November of 90, you were arrested again for burglary of a building and got 18 years in 81. Then you got, in 1993, you got 25 years for burglary of a building. And let me tell you what's significant about those days. In those days, people were getting time like lollipops. I mean, and it was so many people going with so many big numbers, they would get out in 2 or 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, in and out, in and out. And that's when, between 1992 and 1994, I forget, 1994, they created the state jail felonies. And that's the nonviolent offenses where they would separate them from the Texas Department of Corrections. And the nonviolent offenders could only do from 6 months to 2 years.
Yeah, right.
And so they wouldn't clog up the system. So if someone got 25 years, they do a lot of that 25 years.
That's right.
And the people who were unfortunate enough to get convicted in 1994 when they opened up those state jails and they took all these unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, which he's getting 15 and 25 years, after 94, you couldn't get but about 2 years for it.
That's right.
Although they were still trying to give you a lot of time because the prosecutors just didn't like the law change, so they were still trying to do it anyway.
Yeah.
But those, so he's getting all this time, but once he gets to 1993, and I've never met him before, now the time becomes real because now by 2001, okay, so in 1993, you get burglary of a building, 25 years.
Yeah.
Okay, still we don't have the state jails,
Yeah.
so I know you didn't do a lot of time on that one.
Yeah.
So, but then in 2001, you get 25 years for possession with intent to deliver 4 to 200 grams of cocaine. Now, this could have been just 4 grams of cocaine. And remember, a gram is equal to a sweet and low pack. So we're talking about a small amount. It could be 4 grams, 4 little sweet and low packs to 200 could get you, so this got you 25 years. So let's start with 2001. When you get the 25 years, it's actually for 3 cases, different drugs. But then they have those state jails, so you were probably doing some time then.
Well, it was a revolving door and a lot of that stuff, You was in and out, 4 years, 4 months, 18 years, 18 months, that's how things were. And it really didn't faze me because, I was so gung-ho and so caught up in myself and so caught up into these criminal activities until, it was no end to it because of the lifestyle that I desired to live. And as you can see, I went into the drug sales.
Right, so at some point you stopped playing with cars and you started doing drugs when you got out.
And started selling drugs, started doing drugs, and and just caught up into this vicious cycle, this criminal cycle that was just ongoing and wouldn't stop turning, And,
but this 25 years you got in 2001, do you remember how long you had to stay for that one?
On that deal there, I think I stayed probably about, I want to say about 4 years.
About 4 years.
Yeah.
Then in 2008 was the last time they sent you to prison, and it was for 2 cases, still drugs.
Still drugs, yeah.
So on that 10 years in 2008, how long did you do?
I did about 5 years. I did about 4 years, and I went to a Christian program. I went to a Caravans Interchange Freedom Initiative program because I was crying out for help.
Oh, that Carol Vance prison, they do some wonderful work there, don't they?
Oh, man, they work from the inside out. That's why they call it interchange.
Wow.
It did some things on the inside of me because I surrendered my life to Christ.
How did you do that? How did you finally surrender after 30 years of going in and out of prison? How did you do that, Don Ray?
How did I do it? It's funny you said that because it's very interesting. Everybody stepped out of my life at that point because they thought there was no hope.
30
there
years
was
of going
no
to prison.
end.
Yeah, 30 years.
And I get that. And that's when God stepped in.
Oh,
because I was at the bottom. I was at the bottom.
And
when you're at the bottom, you can't do nothing but reach for a Savior that everybody is talking about.
Right.
And men is coming in saying, hey, this is what he done for me. He'll do it for you. He's no respect of a person. And
you've been going to prison for 30 years, so how did it what epiphany, what light bulb went off in your head to say, this is it? Was it because you were at the Carol Vance unit, or was it just that God thing, something touched you? What made you surrender?
What made me surrender was I was sick and tired of doing the same thing and getting the same results. Insanity, and not only that, everybody has stepped out of my life to the point to where that I didn't have anybody to call on but this God they're talking about.
Wow.
That my mom introduced me to when I was growing up that I fled from.
Wow.
You know, one of my pastors said that he left a blessed place trying to find the best place and wound up in a mess, and I did it over and over and over. And I got to the point to where I had got sick and tired of living my life in prison, in and out of prison and doing criminal activities, and God worked on me from the inside. He really spoke to my heart. Everybody, the only somebody that I had in my life at that point was a paralyzed sister in God.
Wow.
And she couldn't even write a letter, but she wrote me.
Wow.
She couldn't do anything because she was paralyzed from neck down. And she said the last time, she said, "Don, I'm through."
Ooh.
But guess what?
Ooh.
God say, "You can't quit now." And
Wow.
they teamed up.
She and God.
And she and God. And they ministered to me, and God sent men from everywhere, interchange. They come from all over the
Come into
country
that prison.
to the program,
Wow.
sharing their story. And some of those stories really, really dealt with me from the inside, and I knew that was God speaking through men to me.
Give us a story. Which one?
That,
Which one stands out in your recollection right now?
Well, one of the ones stood out is when Armstrong, he's a pastor today. He came through interchange.
Now, he came through interchange. Does that mean he'd ever been to prison before? Was he given back, or was he just a man that cared about people in prison?
Well, he was a man that did 21 years in prison and got out.
Okay.
And
Came to give back.
came to give back and shared his story about how great his life was.
Wow.
And he got married, and God gave him a wife. You know, he married Jane Fortune niece. But anyway, he was one of the guys that influenced me. Was a part of the influence as far as his story and his life and how beautiful it was, along with all the other things that God did in the programs and you know, like they had some things going on at the interchange program that really, really blessed my life.
Like what?
Like Toastmasters, like the ministry. You know, I got involved into the ministry, and I was a servant. I was a servant.
Well, let me ask you, what was different? So say when you were there, before you got there, how would your days be in prison versus then when you get this epiphany or you get on this journey? Tell me how your days were spent differently.
Well, my days in prison was not nice, not having the things that you wanted, because there's still criminal activities going on in prison. You know, they're doing all kinds of things. They're getting high. They're smoking cigarettes and doing things. You know, I was a trustee. You know, I drove truck in prison, and you know, I was able to go to church and fellowship, and you know, and I was still caught up. You know, I was still working in the kitchen, cooking and driving truck, doing what everybody else was doing.
Still doing wrong in prison.
Still doing wrong in prison. Every time.
Every time.
And that light came on. Stop. Stop. And the voice from God, late in the midnight hours when there was nobody, and God spoke to my heart. Say it's over. And they come to me one day and they asked me did I want to get into the interchange program. And some of the people there that in the church programs, they introduced me to it, and I applied for it, and they told me I wasn't eligible.
Why not?
I said, God didn't say I wasn't eligible. I know I'm eligible. So I reapplied again, and one day they told me, you're on the change, you're going to interchange.
Wow.
And when they did that, and they took me through the back gate of interchange, it wasn't prison no more. It was God business.
But you were still in prison.
Yeah, I was still in prison.
And you're still on parole.
Yeah, I'm still on
parole. Because I have to
parole.
calculate that if you got 10 years in 2008, I mean, you'd be on till 2018.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have some time from this 25 years.
Oh, yeah,
You're on parole then,
Yeah.
so you're on parole till
Yeah.
2026, maybe?
Something like that.
Something like
Yeah.
that. So when did you get out?
I got out in January.
Of this year.
Of
So
this
you just
year.
got out. After you're going in and out for 30 years, you out.
And
so how are you changing your life to make sure you don't go back? How did you change your friends? How old are you now?
Well, I'm 54 right now.
Okay, you look good.
And
so how are you making sure you don't go back?
well, I'll stay in the fellowship. I stay connected with my Christian brothers, and they support me and I support them. I don't involve myself, entangle myself with past life. And I stay on that path of, like Danny and them say at St. John, the path of freedom.
Right.
I don't think about prison. I'm so far away from the prison life until I forgot to go to parole one day.
Oh, my
and guess what my
God.
parole officer told me?
What?
She said, "You good. If I could take you off of everything, I would, because of the fact that I'm honest with myself and I know what God has done in my life, and I stay on that path, and that keeps me from doing anything wrong." What make my life so different today is people have come into my life that offered me all the things that I desired as far as coming out of prison. And I know it was God, like my mentor. He mentored me in the program. He owns his own business, invited me into his business as a truck driver because I got my CDLs while I was in prison. And not only that, one of the pastors there in the interchange program gave me a job before I left.
All right.
And I worked for him driving cement truck. I've been making no less than $15 an hour since I've been out of prison.
Amen.
And kept a job since I've been out, and I'm still working now. And that's why I'm here so late.
That's why you're late, because you're still trying to work. We want you to keep
I
your
was
job.
driving. I mean, God just came and got me out the blue and told me, "Hey, man, I need you to drive this truck." And I did that. But God has been so good to me until I don't even have the desire. He took the desire from me.
What about the drug desire?
The drug desire, I don't even have the desire for that. You know,
So
I
if
don't
you
drink,
tempted-
I don't drug.
If you tempted with one of your old friends, how do you deal with that?
You know, it's one of the old sayings, if I don't never pick up, I don't use. That's what they said in AA, and I really never grasped that until I really got close to God and realized that. And I was tempted on the 4th of July when all my nephews are doing extremely well, got their own business, and they just love their uncle because I'm the only one, you know. And they invited me to their hot mic drinks and they, you know, the firecrackers and all that. "Hey, man, just get you one of these lemonade, champagne, hard mic drink, man. They light, they good, it's just a one-time deal." And I say, "Man, I just don't have."
Can't do it.
I don't have a desire for it. I really never been a drinker anyway, and so
What was your?
my drug of choice really was marijuana, and I got caught up in the cocaine, and you know, when God killed that desire, I just don't have a desire for it.
Right, you don't need to do that. Caller, I might have ignored you, so call back. I'm sorry, I just wanted to get to a stopping point on his story, but you're welcome to call back.
Me and Donald actually did time together.
Oh, wow.
That's where I met him at.
Wow.
And they sent me to a facility, from one facility to help open up a behavior modification. And I was at Cal, and they sent me to Joe Nay back in 2000, maybe 7.
Something
like that.
Was it 2007?
And so I met Donald with a group of other men.
But all in prison.
Well, it's in prison. We're getting ready to get out, but it's a 9-month program.
So like a transitional program.
Right. Transitional behavior modification.
Yeah.
But because I had reached a certain level of participation, they wanted me to go there and show them how this thing could work. So what Donald did, all the guys on there, he befriended me. And I remember one day he called me over to his bunk and said, "Well, Danny, here's something to eat." But I'm going to try to close the gap on that. We will both get out, and I will come to Houston and stayed in contact with Donald. This is before he went back. Mm-hmm. And I was on a monitor, and I could talk to people on the phone, and I would meet Donald in group. And Donald suggested to me to go to St. John's.
Oh, wow.
He said, "It fits your character. And Danny, the person you are, you're going to fit in perfect with St. John's." That's how I got into St. John's, per his suggestion. And I didn't know at that time that when I went to St. John's, I would never see Donald again until I went to Carol Vance unit.
So he was back. He went back.
Path of Freedom, the prison ministry, we went to Carol Vance, and I went into the Toastmaster room to hear a presentation from the inmates. I sat down in a chair, and I looked, and because he's so big, I looked, and I saw his shoulder, and I looked, and I did like that, and there was this man right here. And I said, "It's you. You're the reason I'm in St. John's, and I'm in this prison ministry. It's your fault."
Let's take a call. Caller, thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. You're on.
Hello there, Miss King and Danny and Don Ray.
Hey, number one fan. How you doing,
Uh,
Tracy?
I'm doing pretty good. When I first, I called at first, I was mad, because what happened down there in Waller. But listening to this man's story here, it makes me feel a whole lot better.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you feel better, Tracy.
Yeah, I'm still mad, but I'm gonna try to channel that anger in a positive way.
Right,
that's
right,
what's up,
right,
Tracy.
right,
That's
right,
what's up.
right. Yeah, we started off the first part with the sadness of the current events, but isn't it a great story to know that this man's been going in and out for 30 years? He was late because he's trying to keep a job. He just got out of prison in January. We just met him, and we're blessed to hear his story. And the good news that there's life after 30 years of prison, in and out of prison.
Great life.
Yeah. Just unfortunate, Miss Bland, she won't never get a chance to, realize, to see, what life could be, because she just getting started.
Amen.
And,
Amen. We as
and
we as a community have to do something about that. We need to wrap our arms around our kids, our young adults, because they're still babies. They're transitioning and into adulthood. And she was under a lot of pressure. Some people cuss. I just saw an accident in front of my office the other day. The girl wouldn't get out of her car. She cried for 30 minutes. It was a brand new car. She wrecked it. She didn't know what to do. I mean, young people just make stupid decisions. They were trying to get her out of the car, but she just was,
Distraught.
just distraught. She even called her people. They came to the scene. She wouldn't get out of the car. She was just like in shock. I mean, young people just do things. I mean, that girl just was young and just talking silly to the cop. Just like, she shouldn't have done it, but it doesn't mean that he needs to violate her rights and start tasing her just because she talked back. If I spank my daughter or you spanked your kid, you can't tase them because they talk back. I mean, we're not going to give the cops more rights than we have with our own kids. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, I watched the Bad Cast video last night, and I was so upset I couldn't even sleep last night.
I couldn't watch it. I'm going to be speaking tomorrow on ABC Crossroads on this topic, and I'm going to have to watch it. I can't even watch it because I'm just tired of the videos. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just
it's hard to
tired.
watch.
I'm just tired of our rights being trampled on, and I'm tired of hearing the talking heads every time something happens say what the dead person should have done.
Right.
That just drives me crazy. They never say, she was having a bad day, so what? I mean, that means she's supposed to be tased and knocked on the ground. That means a little girl in the yellow bikini is supposed to have a grown man push her head in the ground home. Parents probably have never pushed their head in the ground. I mean, it's unconscionable. Thank you for calling, Tracy.
When I watched the Bad Cast video, when he first approached the car, the lady, she would cooperate with it.
Right, until he starts talking to her too much. I mean, some people get pissed off. People are sensitive about cigarettes now. I smoked for 30 years. So I used to get offended if I smoked and somebody, like out in public, and they pass by me and going, like a fake, I mean, I would be defensive about the fact that I'm outside. I'm not messing with your space. I mean, everybody enjoys the air. So, I mean, she was probably defensive, too, about that. Smokers are defensive now.
Well, I don't smoke, but if someone would ask me to put the cigarette out, I'd put it out.
But she didn't break a law and get a citation for not putting it out. So that's the issue: is did he overstep his bounds? So she does not have to put it out.
True.
Well, I think what happened after he walked back to the car, he started picking on her. He's like he's trying to pick a fight.
Right. And that's the problem.
What's wrong with you? You seem like you're upset. Why couldn't you give a warning and let her tick and let her go? I mean, that's my whole point right there.
That's all he should have done. That's what the law requires. She has a constitutional right to be left alone.
Okay, I'm going to hang up. I'm not going to take the rest of the show because I know you don't have much time left. But thank you for taking my call. And thanks for your story, Don Ray.
All right. Appreciate you, brother.
Well, Donna Ray, we're proud of you. We have 3 minutes. So tell people what you've learned about your experience in prison and how we know you're going to make this parole till 2026.
My experience in prison was, well, it was pretty bad, because I was still caught up in the criminal activities in prison. And even though I did some positive and some negative, and the negative always be the one that haunts me and allow me to be back in that place. The prison life, it was horrible,
Well, would you come back one day? We'll give you some more time when you can get off and get here on time. And tell us about life in prison in and out for 30 years, because we'd like to develop that more and understand what your personal experience was like there.
Well, my life in prison, I always had positive things going on in my life, and negative. Like I just said a while ago, I was barber, you know, and everybody looked for me. I've always been a great barber. I've been doing that since I was 23 and did more in prison than I did on the street. But the life in prison was, just go shower, go to chow, you know, that's no life for a man to live, and it was horrible for me. Because, you know, even with my in and out incarceration, I never could get used to that. People telling me what to do, and, you know,
Calling them
dirty
boss.
cops, you know, bringing in cigarettes and bringing in drugs, and, you know, keeping this vicious cycle turning in these men's lives that could stand an opportunity to change. So, you know, the system went from criminal justice to correction to ID.
Right.
So now when they said ID, that means they just warehousing you
Right.
and putting you on the shelf,
Institutional
and they
division.
getting a lot of time out of people now. You know, back then it was, you know, they was trying to correct. You have to educate yourself in prison now. You know, if you don't, you'll come out the same way you was when you came in. And, you know, me, I've been out since January. You know, I'm just shift just a little bit. And I never really went to, had any credit, even though I've, held down a job or two. And since I've been out, I wanted to get me a vehicle. And I went to a dealership, and they needed a coat signer. You know, I wanted a truck. And I looked at the truck, and the guy said, well, hey, man, you want your truck? I said, that's my truck. So he said, well, let's go in here and look at your credit. So they went in there and looked at my credit, and they said, oh, man, you're a ghost. Nobody knows you. You never had any credit before.
You never had a real job.
Yeah. So they went back in. They said, you got a coat signer for 6 months? I said, yeah. I gave them a coat signer, and they came back, and they said, that coat signer's probably like you, a ghost, too. Okay. He said, do you have anybody that'll sign for you? I said, the only somebody that'll sign for me that I know positively today is Jesus. So the salesman looked at me and laughed, and he like, wow, I ain't never heard that one before. Let me go back in here. So he went back in and came out. He said, hey, man, your credit has been approved.
All right, Jesus.
2009 Nissan pickup, 63,000 miles on it. And guess what? We're going to detail it. We're going to clean it up. I mean, nice truck. I say, wow, man.
Wow. So Jesus approved your credit.
He approved my credit. So I put everything on Jesus now.
I know
because
that's
I
right.
have to.
Where's this car dealership at?
This is
that
Baker Nissan off 290.
Wow.
You know, and
Wow.
I never bought a vehicle like that.
Make sure that you're responsible with the vehicle and pay your notes on time.
Actually, I've had a wreck since I had the
Oh
vehicle.
my God! But you have insurance.
Yeah, I'm legal. I got everything that it takes to be legal today. That's why I go to church, pay my tithes, and love on God, and treat people right.
All right. Well,
Stay away from criminal activities.
All right.
I was going to share.
Well, we can't share no more. We got to wrap it up, darling.
All right.
So, anyway, thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King tonight. We talked a little bit about the Sandra Bland case. That case is closed for now, but we'll open it up again soon. We've talked about Donald Ray's story of 30 years of incarceration and now being out since January, working, doing the right thing, and finding Jesus to even co-sign for his car. So thank you for watching tonight. Case closed on Donald Ray until we open it up again in a few months. Thank you for watching. Good night. Thank you for tuning in again tonight. We have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories.